A lot of this stuff is common sense, but it's still stuff that we don't do. It's like it's so easy we don't do it. And so those boundaries, those bricks, if you will, or those blocks or those timbers or whatever it is that you're going to make those boundaries with are things like, hey, who do we want to be and how are we going to get there? What's that look like? And neither of us are real good at goal setting. So if it's like, where do you want to be in 5 years? It's like, I don't know, 5 years down the road. Maybe a little taller. Depends what kind of boots I got on. We're not real good at the goal setting thing, but we do talk a lot about where do we want to be with our kids, how do we want to be training our kids, what kind of things we want to be investing into them, how do we want to be with our congregation, what kind of people do we want to be, and so a lot of that kind of stuff that just, it's good to talk about. You've got to talk about it if you want to get there. It's part of the boundary, the very first step. Got something?
This last year we've talked before about budgeting our money, but this last year him and I really kind of pulled in the reins and started writing a lot of things down, and we've been really working on just getting out of debt and things like that, getting our house paid off, whatever. And so we've spent so much time working this and looking over the budget and seeing if it's working. And just the other day he said, what if we managed our time like we managed our money? And it just kind of hit me, because we'll say things that, like, man, this whole day went by and I just feel like we didn't accomplish what we were supposed to accomplish. And what would that look like if you really managed your time? And not that you necessarily have to write it out, but just to be faithful with the things that God has given us, which time is part of that. So it's one boundary of where do you spend your time?
Yeah, if you want to be godly, what's going to keep you in that disposition? That's part of the boundary. Boundaries are also in who do you want to be. You've got to set up boundaries to be those people. Jamie and I don't want to be fighters. We don't want to be yellers. We're not loud people. Neither of us are deaf. We hear really well. So we can talk at this level and a lot gets accomplished. Things like that you never, a lot of people never mark in the sand. That, look, here's our boundary. This is what we're going to be in this thing called marriage. When I was building that garden, man, I was sweating, pinching, hurting my fingers on bricks, but I knew this is what it's going to look like. And why don't we do that in our marriage? Why don't we set up these boundaries that this is what it's going to look like? And I'm passionate about it, we're serious about it, and it's set up. Some just obvious boundaries, well, I guess they're obvious to us, is we don't name call. It's a boundary we set up. We're not going to name call. We're on the same team. I don't tackle my quarterback, right? No, we're on the same team. And so we set up these boundaries that we know are going to create success and also create the disposition in us that we're looking for, that we know we're supposed to have. Very important. So mark it off, set it apart. Here's a great statement. Freedom without boundaries is bondage. A lot of people don't like boundaries because I just want to be who I want to be. I'll be who I'm created to be. No, you're going to end up in bondage. You're going to end up going two different directions. If you'll both discipline yourself to put restraints on what you want to become, it might not be comfortable at the beginning, but you're going to end up flowing in this thing that's God. It's like, man, this is good. This is good. Marriage is awesome if you'll work it. And so don't receive that lie that I want to be free. Be free inside of boundaries. Right. That's true freedom. Borders embrace the importance of the covenant. They protect the covenant that you've made. Those boundaries are what protect that garden. They protect that covenant, and they say this is set apart and this is going to keep whatever I'm doing inside of it. And so if your marriage was a garden, what's keeping it protected? What's protecting it from the elements of life? Do you have anything else on that before we move on?
Just that should be in our thought, like I will protect this covenant at all costs. Like I don't care what happens, what's been said, what's been done in the past. Like this covenant is to be protected at all costs. And there was boundaries from the very beginning, and from Adam, even from that Adam and Eve, God said, here's what you can touch and here's what you can't touch, and He put up a boundary. And so it's silly to think that we shouldn't have boundaries in our own marriage.
Right. Boundaries are a great opportunity to prove love. You think about it, he set up in the garden boundaries to let man prove he loves him. And it's the same for us. As long as they didn't touch that tree, it was, I obey you and I love you, Lord. And it was an opportunity to show love. So, great point.
Our flesh always wants to go outside of the boundary. Like if we tell our kids 8:30 is bedtime, they want 8:40. If we say they can have one piece of candy, can I just have two? And it's like our flesh always wants to just kind of get out of that. And God's saying,
Right.
no, protect this boundary.
So what boundaries have you set up? Think about that. What does it look like? Is my garden protected? Do I have any parameters around this garden called marriage? Or are we just kind of trying this thing out? We just kind of float and hoping everything works. And what happens when you do that is you find yourself spread out so thin that there's nothing but chaos going on. And so allow me to submit to you that those boundaries bring clarity. They bring protection into the marriage where you can actually stop and think about what's going on here. How does this look? Is it lining up with what we created? Secondly, is healthy soils. I was laughing to Jamie saying, we're talking to a bunch of farmers that know what's up when you talk about planting. And so I am not a gardener. I know the word, that's all I got. So don't laugh at any of my gardening tips, okay? Some of y'all got some brown thumbs, you're some serious gardeners. Don't laugh at my tips, but you'll get more revelation than me on this. So what I'm trying to do is just take you to the front of the cave, and then you can mosey on in the rest and get all the nuggets inside that cave. And so, healthy soil. Many people try to start with whatever dirt's present. That's what they start with. Now this is marriage. Don't get gardening on me. We're keep marriage and garden together. Most people start with whatever dirt's there. Hey, this will work. I do. Let's go. And they start with whatever's present, and let's just plant something in this. Anyone ever tried that before? I have. I've got a whole corner in my yard that doesn't grow anything but some weird looking weeds, and it's just nasty. I just kept the dirt that was there. You've got to change out the dirt. Keep your selfish ways out of it. Listen, bad dirt is selfish behavior. That's bad dirt. It will not produce. And it's so easy to see selfishness in the other person. But what really makes the dirt rich is when you can see it in you. When you can see it in you. And you're not going to see it in you when somebody's pointing it out for you. You're going to see it in you when you truly are by yourself going, God, show me what's wicked in me. Get it out of my life. When you're compassionately wanting to change because you know it's not doing you any good. So unhealthy dirt is when someone decides to keep their selfish ways close to their heart and they refuse to be wrong or change. And you cannot grow anything healthy in that kind of soil. Only weeds will grow in that soil. How many people feel like they got a garden full of weeds? Well, you know what happened? You kept your selfishness. This is just like baptism. Two people come together, they stand at the altar, and they say, I do. But if these two people don't die to themselves, like in baptism, and decide to raise new, they will never produce anything healthy. They might get little sprouts that come up, and it's like, oh, look at our marriage, look at our marriage. But it's not going to be healthy enough to give away. And the thing that's growing are those nasty, pokey weeds, and when people get around you, they get poked. Right? Because the dirt, it's the dirt. It's the soil that needs to be taken care of. So here's my encouragement to you. Determined to operate out of a selfless disposition. Pick the rock out. Pick out the rock. What are some rocks in marriage? What are some rocks in marriage that need to be picked out? When I think of rock, I think of hard hearts. Just stubborn, this is who I am and you're not going to change it. You met me like this, you should still love me like this. You knew I kept my dirty socks out in the living room and I like re-wearing my underwear a couple times a week. Get off my back, you know. You've got to change. You've got to change. Oh man, I'm trying not to preach the whole weekend. When we drive through South Dakota, through like the Prairie Land of South Dakota, maybe it's here too, but
there's just huge rock piles, and I really never knew what they were for. And he said, they spent a lot of time picking rock, so that their fields could be productive. I'm sure it's the same thing here, but I was just thinking, like, how much time and effort goes into picking rock, and
Wow.
it's a hard job, but unless it's picked, there's no fruit from that ground. And so I think of rocks as unforgiveness, or just things that we've allowed to harden, or fences, or even little irritations that add up, and there's not room for the fruit because you've allowed those rocks to take over.
Right. I think very rarely would you find a farmer that says, I don't want to move that rock because it's just too hard to move. It's like, no, I'm going to get that thing out of there. And some of y'all probably broke some equipment, been bucking some machinery, determined to get this rock out of the way. Why won't you do it for your marriage? If you can really parallel those two, it can show you as passionate as I'm deciding to be about this marriage is how good it's going to be. Some of y'all got fields that you look at and go, oh, yeah, that's right. Because I've invested so much into getting that thing to look like that. I have poured my life into that crop. Same with marriage. It should be the same thing. And there's no rock that I'm willing to let stay there because it's hindering produce. It's hindering life. And so it's a great point. Irritations, unforgiveness, it's things that I have a right to keep in my garden, but it ain't doing no good. It ain't producing anything. We'll probably hit that quite a bit this weekend, is your right. Well, it's my right to be mad. It's my right to feel this way. It ain't going to get you nowhere. It won't get you nowhere. So move the rocks. Be open to rock picking. Old normals, ingrained ideas and perceptions that don't work, they don't work as a couple. They might have worked for you when you were alone, or maybe even as a couple, you've been working with these things and just trying to ignore them. Just pick them. Just get them out of there. You'll be so glad you did. And really, they just take up dirt. And so, marriage is baptism. Remember, the old is gone and the new has come. The old is gone and the new has come. That's what the scripture tells us. The best you is the selfless you. Man, a lot of Americans have never understood how that feels to be selfless. The best you'll ever be is the selfless you. That's tough. That's tough to do. But when you get into it, it's like, this is good. And you'll feel God's hand upon your life. It's like you'll feel Him running with you, where it's like, this is life right here. I get this. It's the selfless you. You got something? Oh, I saw you moving over there. I thought you were ready to preach it up. Another area of healthy soil is to be equally yoked in Christ, in vision, in family purpose. Be equally yoked. The best way to find out if you're equally yoked or not is to sit down and talk about that stuff. Where are we at with the Lord? I mean, how much say does He have in our life? How much do we move at His whisper? How much does His word confront us? How much are we going to let His word confront us? You got to talk about that kind of stuff. And make sure we're equally yoked in this point. We're equally yoked in vision, where we want to go and who we want to be. We're equally yoked in family. What do we want our family to look like? And what do we want to look like? The way to get equally yoked in those is to communicate. I'm sure you all know what a yoke is. When you got oxen pulling, does your marriage look like that, where one of you is pulling and the other's not, and that yoke is uneven? No, equally yoked. We are pulling with the same passion because we know what we're looking for. And so if you want to have good, rich soil, be equally yoked in those areas on purpose. And you'll get there by talking about it. It's amazing to me. That communication thing was hilarious. It's amazing to me how many couples don't communicate. They just think it's going to happen, but you've got to purposely talk about it. And if you will, you'll find yourself winning. Communication puts life in activity. And y'all feel like you do a lot of activity with no life in it? No excitement? It's just this blah. It shouldn't be that way. If you're willing to communicate about it, it'll bring life to it. It'll add sustenance to that living. And it won't just be this thing that's like, oh, here we go again. But there'll actually be life inside of it because you've talked about it, you got vision, and now you're tackling it with zeal. It adds life to the activity. last but not least on this topic is a garden is not a garden if it doesn't produce anything. And so if you don't put rich, good soil in, you're not going to produce anything. And it's not a garden. A marriage should produce something that gives away to others. When you can learn to focus on your marriage like it's a ministry, you'll start to handle it correctly. When we first got married, we didn't even really realize what we were saying, but we were saying we want to be a light to our neighbors. And we would always say that. We want our marriage to be a light. We want our marriage to be a light. And it's like, you know what that means. But what happened was when we got married, we treated it like a ministry. When nobody was watching. When the doors were shut and the curtains were shut, it was a ministry. We knew this has to please God when nobody's watching. And it causes you to do some stuff you wouldn't do because you're serious about it. Anything else on that? Planting purposeful seed. Next step, planting purposeful seed. So we've got our boundaries set up. We put in healthy soil on purpose. Got rid of all the rocks and the dirt and the nasty stuff. We put in healthy soil. And now we're planting purposeful seed. What does it mean to plant seed on purpose? Think about that in marriage. What seeds are you planting in this marriage right now on purpose? Or how many of y'all are just trying to make it through the day? Just got to make it through the day without a bite. We'll be good. No, we need to be living on purpose. We need to be doing some stuff on purpose. Investing into things you know will create a healthy return. When's the last time you did something as a seed that you knew this is going to create a healthy return? Even if my flesh hates it, even if my flesh is screaming about it, it's going to create a healthy return. What things are you doing that you know will create something healthy? Some examples are words of life, quick to encourage, actions of love, doing something now that will reward you in the future, even if it doesn't feel good. One of the best words of advice I got when I got married was somebody said, don't ever say something in anger that will take you years to fix. That has helped me more times than I can count. Not because I'm always angry, but because when I feel the blood starting to raise, and it's only got 5 foot to go, so it's like that quick. When I feel the blood starting to raise up, immediately I put a filter on because I know I'm not about to talk out of this action right here because it's not going to be healthy. It's not going to be a purposeful seed. It's not going to create anything healthy. And so, purposeful words, words of life. What is that? Words that bring life to those that are hearing you. When's the last time you purposely picked something out about your spouse that you thought was awesome and said it? Purposefully. Here's a good one. Don't say, that shirt looks good on you. Say, you make that shirt look good. Just that little twist right there. You make that look good. Right? Things that are on purpose. Purposeful planting. Encouragement is, if you can get the spirit of encouragement, it will change your perspective. Encouragement does something to you. It causes you to look for good rather than to look for annoyances. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like thankfulness. It changes your disposition where, when I see my spouse come walking through the door, I'm looking at the good. I'm looking at the qualities of God. That's what I'm looking for rather than, I wish she wouldn't do that. I wish she wouldn't do that. I don't get why she does that. It changes your perspective about who they are. I'm telling you, I think Satan jumps on this as quick as he can to get people looking at the wrong rather than looking at the good. Encouragement. Purposeful things. Now, marriage seminars are hard because some of y'all are going to want to go home and do some of this stuff and your spouse can say, you're just saying that because he talked about it last night. You really don't mean it. Let them practice. Let them practice. Right? You got to practice it. And so if you hear that tonight, those duck pajamas you make them look good. Oh, shut up. Let them practice. You got anything on that? Not the duck pajamas, but on the purpose.
The garden that he doesn't love that he has to help me with every year. I've done it for probably like 3 or 4 years, and so I have certain things that I like to plant, and When I think of the purposeful seed, I don't just plant the things that I like, I plant the things that our whole family likes. It's not just all about me or all about our kids, which is really easy to do if you allow yourself. It's not all about him, but it's about the good of our family and the good of our church. So sometimes you have to plant stuff that you don't really want to plant because you don't, might not enjoy the fruit of that, but encouragement or something like that, that's harder to do. But when you continue to plant those seeds, it'll continue to better your home and your church as well.
Right. Great point. You know, and obviously the best way to do this is hear the whisper of God. What should I be planting, Lord? What needs to be in this garden? Who will be in our life that will be nourished by who we are? We don't know. We don't know what's going on, but if we'll listen, we can plant right. And this is a serious deal. If you take this serious, you'll see a garden that's flourishing or a marriage that's flourishing. Let's see. Embrace the variety of seed, like Jamie just said. Your garden isn't all one thing. It should be a whole bunch of different things. Listen, marriage isn't one thing. It's not just one thing that we do and we do it over and over and over. God is a moving God, and He will be changing you through the seasons. He'll be changing you in and out into different things. And so it's not always going to be the same thing every single time. Embrace that variety. All seeds have different ways they're planted, and they all produce something different. And so here's what I would say to you as a married couple. Know your strength. Know the strength of your marriage. Who are we? What are we good at? What can we offer the church or the community or the people around us? What is it about us that can actually produce something that we can give away? When you start to look at what you can give away as a couple, you'll do marriage totally different. If all you've got in marriage is trying to get along so you can make it through the day, that's going to be tough. But when you can start to think, we as a team can produce something that people need, man, you'll just do some stuff. You'll put on some sacrifices that others won't. And let me tell you, God will take you up on that. He really will. And so let Him do it. Know your strength as your marriage. What do you produce best? What do you as a couple produce? Have you ever thought about that? Start planting that seed that you know you can offer the world. Some other seeds are extra communication. That's a little phrase Jamie and I have used lately. Don't be afraid to over-communicate. We use that on purpose because if she tells me to run to the store and get this, then I get there and there's like great value brand, and then there's this brand, and you're looking at 20 different things. You got a cold sweat coming on. And what comes after the cold sweat, man? Frustration. Why do I have to be at the store picking this thing up? Right? Because we're insecure now, and there's a lot of roots to that little frustration. Anyway, over-communicate. Now I say, just send me a picture or something. Over-communicate this thing. I'm telling you, if you can learn to over-communicate, you'll get rid of a lot of garbage that people struggle with. And so it's over-communicated. You want to say anything on that? You're so good at it.
We would sometimes have issues of he would plan something and I would plan something, and then I wouldn't tell him and he wouldn't tell me, and so then it would come up and it's like, well, I planned this first, or this seems more important, or so he's all techie and he found this cool calendar that we can link on our phones together. So right when he puts something in, it shows up on my phone. And it's just little things like that. It's made our life so much easier, and now we can look at it and say, oh, no, we already have something going on that day. So as long as we both remember to put those things in, but you kind of have to think outside of the box. If there's a communication issue, what's the issue, and what are some ways that we can make this issue not be an issue anymore?
Right. I would say every argument is because of communication failure.
Yeah.
Really. And what is that doing? It's creating a seed. And so if you want good, purposeful seed in your garden, learn to communicate. Even if you have to deny yourself to do it. We struggle. We might have to get a case of that medicine and to be able to do this. But what was it? See, I don't even remember already. I was thinking about squirrels. Wow, that's pretty bad. Extra communication. It's good seed. Here's another question. Why do we expect results that we've never planted? Why would you expect to have an awesome marriage if you haven't done anything to see it? Why would you expect to see a crop come up if you never planted seed? How stupid would you look to be all mad and bent out of shape because your field didn't produce anything, but you didn't seed it? I think somebody'd send you away and say, they're a little kooky, right? We do it in marriage all the time. We expect this marriage to produce this awesome harvest, but we didn't do anything to plant it. We didn't do any purposeful seed. We never set up any boundaries. We didn't make sure we had good soil in there, but we want to produce. No, you have to purposely plant some seed in that thing and say, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. Right? It's got to be done on purpose. And so don't be angry about missing crop if you didn't plant any seed. Just get the old tiller out, till together, and get some seed in there. Super important. Anything else on that one? Man, we're cruising tonight. How to tend your garden. Here we go. We're getting serious on this. I hope you guys are making some parallels. Everyone's marriage is different. Everyone's got some different stuff going on. If you made a garden, I made a garden, we'd have some probably totally different stuff in that garden. That's how our marriages are. And so there's no method. There's no little equation that we can throw up to make your marriage work. But we can make some parallels to say, what do you want this to look like? And most importantly, what does God want this garden to look like? And He's so cool that He allows us to mesh who we are with His Word and see God results out of our DNA. It's super cool. It's called free will. When you say, here we are, Lord, do what you want. How to tend your garden. First and foremost, you gotta water it. You've got to water the garden. 1 Corinthians 3:6 talks about Apollos watered. I planted the seed, Apollos watered, but God made it grow because He's the only one that matters. God's the one that's going to make this stuff flourish, but you got to notice, plant it, and it's got to be watered. How do you water that seed? Our job's to plant it. You might do the watering, or someone else in your life might do the watering. Here's my encouragement to you. Take in wisdom. Ask people about their marriage. If you know someone around you that's having a successful marriage or that's been married for a while, go sit at their feet and talk to them about it. Oh, I'm gonna do that. You're a fool. You're a fool. Get wisdom. It's the most precious thing you can get. It's watering to your seed. It's watering to your seed. Have people in your life with the same passion for marriage and Christ that you have. Listen, if you're newly married in here, don't hang out with the same old high school crowd you used to hang out with that's not married and doing all this crazy stuff. It is not going to help your marriage. Get with some people who are married. Go hang out with some older folk and play cards or something. Do what they do and whatever. Sit at their feet because you're going to learn some stuff that works. Listen, when I get married, remember, this becomes the most important thing, not only in my life, but in His eyes. Because I just made a covenant. I made one of the most serious covenants on the face of the earth. And we've got to take it that serious. We really do.
Some of the best advice is people's failures too. So if you have had not a good marriage or a failed marriage, you still have such an obligation to speak into younger people's lives by saying, here's what I did, don't go down this road, it didn't work. And we've gained a lot of wisdom from people that have missed it and were willing to talk to us about it. One thing I always share is our pastor that we're under in Rapid City, Pastor Gary and Miss Evelyn, she shared this with me when Jason and I were engaged, and I just never forgot it. I told you last time, but she said, don't ever, when, say him and I get into a fight, she said, don't ever go to your mom or your sister or your friends and talk about what happened and what he said and what he did, because you'll go home and you'll make things right with him, and he'll apologize, you'll forgive him, you'll move on, but then your mom has this thing against him. I can't believe he said that to my daughter, or I can't believe he said that to my sister. And it was awesome. I don't know that I would have done that, but I probably would have without hearing that. And so that little piece of wisdom or that nugget that she was willing to give me has changed a direction in our marriage. So everybody in here has something to offer, and everybody in here should be listening to what other people have to offer.
Good. When you think about the power of water on a garden, that's advice into your marriage. And so many people get married and don't think they need any advice. Don't think they should have to sit at anyone's feet, learn from them, ask any questions. I just say let your pride stay at the door and get as much as you can. Get water on that crop. You have to. If you're going to sit at home and plant some seed, you've got to get around some people that can water it with you and make that stuff come up. It's so wise, and it cuts a lot of years of struggle out. Even, like she said, even just moments of listening to somebody can cut out years of struggle just because of one nugget you got. It's so cool.
And
Take
even just
advantage of it.
to pull on people, don't just wait for them to come to you, but pull on them. You know, like I said, everybody has something to offer. What do you have to offer? What's your best marriage advice? I'll even ask, we asked Callie last time we were here, just people in general, what's your best marriage advice? And sometimes they have some really cool stuff to offer.
I always ask single people, because they'll say stuff that